who are you?
I am the architect. I created the matrix. I've been waiting for you.
All right, guys, we're going to be talking about the RunScript block here, and that's a very powerful feature that just got released by MindStudio. And it's so powerful that I think it should be called the architect block, because what it does is that it takes several blocks that we normally are used to, like these kind of blocks that you see, combines them into one, and then you can do a whole bunch of things with it afterwards. For instance, here we have a typical MindStudio workflow. It has all these different blocks. This shaded area is what can be taken and then combined into this one run script. Okay, and then it can be used outside of MindStudio. You can use it inside of MindStudio. All kinds of things you can do with it, but it's a very powerful thing, and then you can actually source it through here. So what we're going to do is let's learn about how to actually set this thing up. So we'll start off with the plus sign here and go to workflow scripts, and you get this little interface here. And just to give you a little bit of overview, here on the left hand side, obviously you have your chat interface that you can code with it, but over in the middle here is where all the different blocks actually sit. So if you see this gray area, that's one block. Here is another block. And on the right hand side, you can see a sort of visual of what those blocks look like. And you can actually click into them, and then you'll see it'll highlight the code. This code is actually what's behind these different blocks. So if you click on the generate text block, that's the code behind it. You can see that the message matches up as well. So this is looking at MindStudio under the hood. And this is basically object-oriented programming, because all these different things that are happening are being done by other functions and other libraries in the backend. That's why it's such a small piece of text here, but there's a whole bunch of other things that are going on even behind this. But for us, when we're working with this, all we have to understand that this section corresponds to a particular block that's here. And then here is where we can add the different blocks, and actually we can create all kinds of functionality in this one script. So let's get it actually started. The one cool thing is that we actually can connect it to Cloud Code and then start actually coding with it inside this. So we're going to go over here and click Start Local Connection. And this is how you're going to get your MindStudio local tunnel. It's basically a way to access MindStudio from outside. And here we're going to click on Copy. And then you're going to grab your PowerShell and copy it in, paste. In a second, you're going to press Enter again. And here, as you see, we're fully connected. Now, what we need to do is we need to actually work with our agent. So I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see. As you can see at the bottom, there's a few options. I'm pressing the up and down keys on my keyboard. And what we want to do is connect to an agent. I'm going to click that, and you can see here the different agents that are listed. Now, ours is called, take this out, ours is called Data Query Agent, right? So we're going to click the Data Query Agent, connect to this agent, and then we need to then connect to the right interface. So we're going to go down and we're going to connect to our script that we just created. And then you just click on Start Locally. And then you're going to get this here. It's going to say Copy Cloud Code Command. This is what you need. You're going to click Enter and say Copy. Now, what you're also going to see here, just to remove this PowerShell window, is you're going to say, now you're going to see it says connected locally. So we're actually connected, but now we want to actually connect to Cloud Code as well here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new tab, and that when I pressed Enter here and it copied it, you're going to come here and you click Control V and you're going to copy it. Now, for PowerShell, this symbol doesn't work. So you have to use this, okay? You press Enter, and it asks you if you trust it. You're going to say yes. And now you're fully connected. And I'm just going to move this out of the way. As you can see here, there's some things going on. There's already a few blocks. So let's test this. I'm going to say, what is happening here? And it's going to it's going to look at the code, the blocks. What I expect it to say is that this code basically writes IQ based on a particular topic. And let's see if that says that. Receives a topic as you go, as you can see, right? Okay, so we're fully connected, and that's how you connect. Now, if you decide that you want to disconnect, you just go over here, back to where you were. So you want to keep this tab open always. And then you're going to go back and you can press stop. Okay, you're going to press enter and you're going to press stop, and then that'll basically stop it. Okay, now there's a bunch of things you can do here. So for instance, go down here, click on actions. Remember, this is code, so you want to make sure you create some spaces. You click on actions, and then you can actually add a whole bunch of different blocks here. Okay, and then let's say you want to add another generate text block. Okay, now as you can see, the content of this comes in pretty blank, so you're going to have to fill it in yourself. And there's different ways to fill it. You can fill it in just by typing it here, or you can type it here and it'll do it for you. Okay, now normally in MindStudio, when you use one of these blocks, you can save it as a variable, and that's another option. So if you're wondering where that is, this is right here. This is it. So you can actually set the name of the variable here, and then you can decide what that is. So for instance, if I want to take the information from here and pass it on, I can always do that with variables. Okay, so that's a sort of a quick rundown of how this kind of interface works. It's very powerful, and it's worth playing around with it. And you can do things like take something like this, as I mentioned, and turn it into something like this. So let me show you an example that I'm working on right now. As you can see here, there's these different blocks. And one thing I didn't mention is that there's this card at the bottom here which has a summary of what's exactly happening in this. So this is amazing, because if you're doing something that maybe you don't want to be doing, you can check with this and see. It'll give you some guidelines in terms of what's exactly happening, so you can make sure the logic makes sense. Now, how did I get this code going? First thing is I am trying to take these three different blocks, and what I'm doing is like just optimize the question, query the data source, and then generate an answer. Okay, so these are the three things that are happening. And what I'm trying to do is just bring it into this one script. And the way I did that was, instead of sitting there making the blocks one by one, I just created this prompt and I gave it to Claude Code. And I said, I want to generate this workflow. This is what the workflow looks like. I'm going to start with a question. I'm going to go to the AI. This is the variable it's going to create. It's going to feed that variable to data source lookup. And it's going to create this variable. And then the final variable is going to be the answer. And then it says, I've already added all the blocks. One thing is, like, you can just go in and add the blocks so that you can make it easier. And then I named the particular block, the generate text, and I gave it what it should be inside it. Okay, so basically I did all that, and then I gave it to Claude, and Claude created this. So I didn't even really have to code this. This is Claude did it all. So this is a quick little example of what you can do, and without actually having to make these individual blocks, you just prompt it. And this is just a starting point. I'm sure there's ways that we're going to make this even easier, where you just type in some text and all of this will get, all the blocks from MindStudio will all get done. That's why in the beginning I was saying this is like the architect block, because you can just do so many things with it just by having a conversation with Claude Code.